Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're listening to today's episode of Talk 189. We are at now. We're pre-recording. I'm heading away to America this Wednesday, so hopefully I'll be in San Francisco by the time this goes out. We've a lot to look back on from a busy weekend of action. We had both senior football teams in action. We also had Camogie. We've other business to forward to, and we're slowly creeping towards that semi-final. So do stay tuned for all that and more.
The impression of the game you get out of it, what you put into it's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
But not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Tomas O'Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word go today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We've had a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Curry. Curry leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it high.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.
We're recording on a Monday evening, Matt. I'd say for the first time. How are you keeping after? I suppose it was a very busy weekend.
Yeah, I'm very, very good, Jack. But mixed feelings because of the results. But it was the overriding one is one of great satisfaction personally for the simple reason that it was my first full weekend back, and I was absolutely delighted to get out and about as I used to be before things happened, you know, and there was no feeling, there's no feeling like it, you know. I was like a young fella taking off on Saturday for Camogie. So you know, and we had the ladies football yesterday, so it was an opportunity to see two of the Limerick teams, and we'll be discussing them in depth. But before we go, Jack, I want to wish you a very good holiday. Have a great time. You deserve it, but please don't come back with an American slang of any description.
There's no getting rid of the Palestine slang I have anyway. Thank God. I will be coming home in time for the
Jack, we might be arguing with you about it, but we love the Palestine accent.
Yeah, you'll be able to hear it in the game. I suppose the game isn't fixed yet, but I'll be home just before the Palestine versus Badlanders game. So if you hear an American accent in the crowd, it could be me, but I'd be very surprised if there's any sort of a twinge coming from. We're moving down the West Coast, so I mean,
you won't be in goals, will you, Jack?
No, I suppose my playing days could potentially be over. They're definitely over for this year, but please God, I'll be back next year. But there's another level probably going to be in goals. I'd say we'll be in safe hands. There's a few goalies in the club now. There's lads coming from underage as well. So that position is safe hands.
I was about to offer the referee for the day my services as an umpire.
No, I don't think we'd have you in there when Badlanders playing, maybe for some other day. But there will be a preview of the football coming. We're going to record it later on to be out the week before the games. I'll be back then in time for the hurling. But before we kind of get into the games for the weekend, Matt, I suppose you want to send our condolences to the family of William Mulcahy. I know you had another name for the man, but another Gael lost from Limerick GAA, so send the condolences there.
Yeah, Jack, you know, a lot of good things happened over the weekend, but it was all tinged with sadness because William Mulcahy was Billy Hall, as he was famously known as, or more commonly known as. Apart from being a very good friend of mine, you know, he was a very good friend of an awful lot of people. And he was a dedicated, I'd say he was a dedicated, you know, to say he was a dedicated GA man is probably an understatement. He was a dedicated sportsman because he was very, very much into coursing, and in his younger days, he was into athletics. But he would have been known in recent years, particularly for he used to do the public address in Fitzgerald Park in Kilmallock, calling out the teams and all that sort of thing. He was doing it right up to less than 2 years ago. And he was very efficient and very clinical about the way he went about his business. And of course, he's the father of Liam Mulcahy, the well-known physiotherapist, who has been involved with many Limerick county teams and many Limerick club teams, and also the father of Johnny Mulcahy of Effin, a man that's very, very involved with the Effin GAA club, and also very, very involved with the Blackrock Effin Camogie club, and was recently involved with him in their quest for Féile honours. And his passing, Billy Hall's passing, has left a void that will be very, very hard to fill. In the sporting organisations in which he was involved, the community in which he lived, and to Bridie, Liam, Johnny, and Elaine, I just want to send our deepest sympathy at this very, very, very sad time, and indeed to their extended family and his grandchildren. Our deepest sympathy. As I said, it's a difficult time when you lose somebody, and his death was sort of unexpected at the finish, and the community was shocked when it became known last Thursday morning that he had passed on, and may Billy Mulcahy, Billy Hall, may he rest in peace. He has left an indelible legacy and an indelible mark in the community and the sporting organisations which he served.
Yeah, we echo that sympathy to the Mulcahy family. Moving into the games we had at the weekend, Matt, I suppose we'll start in Pairc Ui Chaoimh because it brought a curtain down on the 2022 season for Billy Lee and his men. And I think this Limerick team have kind of gone past the stage of moral victories, and that they lost last year. I think it was 8 or 9 points against Cork, and this year it was only 5. But realistically, looking at the game, it was definitely a missed opportunity. Cork weren't really at the races, and Limerick weren't really either. They had a lot of uncharacteristic wides in the first half and drop balls, which they've been very clinical this year, and they're missing that edge. And we'll talk about the black card in a minute, which was very contentious, I think. But it's a disappointing one, I suppose. We'll start with that, and we can look at the positives of the year in a whole in a few minutes. But just on yesterday, it's a missed chance.
Probably a missed chance. You could say that, Jack. But the first thing that we'll have to say, and full credit to Billy Lee and his management team, is the way that they responded from the drubbing that they got in the Munster football final. And we were speaking here last week when we were looking forward to this game, and we concluded that apart from having home advantage, which Cork had home advantage, that they also had the advantage of having played a game since they got drubbed by Kerry. And I suppose essentially that might have been the key in the getting over the line, because Limerick really, really put it up to them. But Jack, there's one thing that we can never question about this Limerick team, and I'm not going to repeat it for the umpteenth time and quote the examples of it. We cannot for 1 minute underestimate their resilience and their capacity to face and meet a challenge head on, and that's what they were facing. They were facing last Saturday now, or Sunday. Now, I quite honestly, when you came to the predictions last week, I did say I thought Cork would win for the reasons that I've already outlined. But I did think as well that Limerick would give a damn good show, a damn good account of themselves. And they probably more than did that, Jack. They probably did give a good account of themselves, which was nearly enough to win the game. But unfortunately, it didn't. And you touched on it there about the black card for Gordon Brown. It was while Gordon was off the field that the whole dynamic of the game changed when Cork posted 1-3. And like Limerick still came back and kept coming back, and it's to their credit. And Cork were never assured of a place in the quarter-final draw this morning until they planted away that penalty. So full marks to Limerick. I think it was a very, very good performance and a very, very good. And like, if you put it into context, Jack, this is the Limerick team that went to Ennis and beat Clare. We have seen Clare now who have beaten Meath and Roscommon, two counties from the higher echelons of the standings of the rankings, let's say, and they're into a quarter-final. So that puts it into context where Limerick are at, and it's going to be a huge step up, and not fasting forward now or anything. But it's going to be a huge step up into Division 2 next year. But by God, Billy Lee has a lot of the groundwork done with his team. And he has benchmarked his team. He benchmarked them against Clare. Now, he probably benchmarked them to a certain degree against Kerry without much success. He certainly benchmarked them yesterday, and he must be quite happy that his squad will be able to compete when they take the step up. And Jack, taking the step up is something that's only going to mean further improvement, because there is no doubt in my mind, if we wouldn't be having this conversation now if Limerick was still languishing in Division 4. That's no disrespect to Division 4. Somebody has to be in Division 4, But Limerick had a very, very two, not one, but two very successful seasons in Division 3 before getting out of it. And let's hope that yesterday's defeat will augur well for when Limerick return to action again, which will be possibly, major action anyway, because we'll probably have the McGrath Cup at the start of the year next year. But when they'll return to main action, which will be the league.
Yeah, it's good that a 5-point loss to Cork is when you're kind of disappointed about, and as you rightly said, that there has been growth and development, and I suppose every year they've been ticking off a box. In 20 was promotion, in 19 or 21 it was staying up, 2022 it was promotion again, and the Munster final, and winning 2 games in the championship. And I suppose there's only so much progress you can make in a year, and there's always going to be the likes of Derry, and I suppose even Armagh now, they're kind of exceptions to the rule, even though Armagh have been building for a few years under Kieran McGeeney. But Limerick are going in the right direction. I suppose they still kicked 116 against Cork. Now, Cork did look a bit porous in defence, and you would be worried about them going forward against Dublin. We'll have a brief look at the draw in a while. But huge positives to take, I think, from an attacking standpoint for the year. And I suppose that black card, Cork, to their credit, really met hay while the sun was shining in those 10 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. That was probably the defining period, because when you hit 1-3 in a tight situation like that, it gives the opposition a mountain to climb. But fair dues to Limerick, they responded, Jack. Fair dues to them, they responded. And Limerick got some very, very good scores. Adrian Enright was in great form. He kicked 4 points. If you get a wing forward that kicks 4 points from you, you'll have him all day. And I'm not so sure we should be surprised about that, because Adrian Enright is a damn good footballer, Jack, and sometimes his contribution to the Limerick team, and indeed I think, goes a small bit under the radar, and if a probably big game player, I think, a bit, if you recall, he was also very effective in Croke Park in the Division 4 final. So but look, Jack, possibly you can't take one game in isolation, but it's a year that has been laced with positives, Jack. Laced with positives as far as Billy Lee. And Billy Lee isn't getting beyond himself. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
He has a conceived plan, and he's sticking to it. And he's not expecting miracles. He's working hard at any one time for what he thinks is achievable or attainable.
Yeah, I think I know I mentioned Derry and Armagh, but I suppose Clare is probably a model that Limerick will be looking at probably more closer. The work Colm Collins has done is very akin to Billy Lee, and I'm sure that whatever piece was done about Colm Collins on the Sunday game, that would have been the same for Billy Lee if Limerick had managed to get over the line, even though the work is still being done. But it's not going to be a linear progress. It's not going to be consistently up. There's going to be bumps in the road, and Clare have recovered from penalties to get back to an All-Ireland quarter final. Limerick recovered from the drubbing at the hands of Kerry to push Cork all the way, but we're just that bit short. But one thing that this year, that there's great squad depth there, and we made huge references to the fact that there was missing loads of players from your starting team. You had Danny Neville and Tommy Childs gone and Brian Fanning gone for a while, but even outside that, the likes of Seamus and Carroll and them aren't there anymore. And yesterday there was four.
David Conley, Patrick Scanlon.
Yeah, there's loads. Yesterday there was four, I suppose, newcomers into the side, and like you wouldn't hardly notice it. Maybe in the forwards it didn't work so seamlessly, but I thought Jim at cornerback was brilliant, and obviously Gordon Brown got 2 points, and the black card will be the big talking point. But for me, Gordon does nothing wrong there. He's continuing his run. I'd say he never looks at the man, but that's a different story. But like, we didn't see Robbie Childs. I know he had a couple of injuries. There's a few more lads there. Peter Nash came into the team and started seamlessly. James Nocton had his best year, I think, in the Green of Limerick. That these fellas are kind of hitting. A lot of them are hitting prime age, and you have younger lads then. I suppose Dear McKelly was kind of making the squad this year, and a few more. So there are a lot of green shoots there for Limerick, and if they can continue to develop, next year it's going to be about survival. But they showed against Cork that they could very well have beaten Cork. You know, it's disappointing that the season ends like that, but there's no reason not to look forward to next year.
Yeah, Jack, but you know, there's a comparison between Clare and a stark comparison between Clare and Limerick, and you know, the message from the two of them. And I suppose it's no coincidence that both of them are very much on an upward trajectory on the football ladder. And I think Colm Collins is on his 8th or 9th year as Clare manager, and Billy Lee has 6 years done as Limerick manager. So if a county board is prepared to put in a guy there and be patient, and if the guy has a plan, which we know Billy had from the start, but Billy went through some turbulent years, but he stuck with it, and he stuck to his principles, and we see what it is. Jack, if we were having this conversation at the start of the year, I don't think hand in heart that we would be reflecting on the type of year that Limerick footballers have had. You couldn't have anticipated it. No. Like you would have honestly said that the first thing that Limerick had to do was consolidation in Division 3, and it was as if promotion wasn't in the vocabulary. It didn't come into discourse, and then to think that for the first year, and I don't know how long, Limerick won 2 Munster Football Championship matches and reached their first Munster final in 12 years. Now, the Munster final didn't turn out to be what we would have liked, any of us would have liked to be, but they came back through the qualifiers and, you know, gave Cork such a run for it in their own patch. You only just wonder, had the game been in Limerick, would it have turned the tables?
Well, they've definitely been better on the road, but I suppose Cork probably get a bit of a flurry when the black card comes and the crowd get behind you and you score straight away. And I'm not going to refer anymore to the black card. I've had my say on that, but that's for Limerick to look to next year. Again, I don't think Gordon did anything wrong, so it's not a case of Limerick's in discipline costume. And look, the ref was obviously told something because he lets play go on, and Hugh Burke is a free to level it. So I think he was told, so you can't really blame the ref there. Hugh Burke, as I just mentioned there, had a brilliant game as well. 5 took over the free taking duties. I think Josh was a bit injured as well. You know, and you've really worked all right for him. One of the other starting is a great place to be. But look, that's Limerick season over. There's been a lot of high points, and we've gone through in loads so far this year.
More high points than low points, Jack.
Yeah, that has to be the message, and it'll be raw for a few days for those lads, and they'll probably get a week and they'll be back with their club, so they probably won't have time to reflect on it fully until their club campaigns comes to an end. But they've given so much joy.
You know, they're going back to their clubs in a situation where they can reflect on their year on the green jersey with no little satisfaction, and they should pride in what they have achieved over the year.
Yeah, and it's an ongoing journey. It's not as if it's an aging squad that are coming to an end. Like there's a lot of players coming to the prime of their careers. The older lads don't really show any signs of slowing down. The likes of Donald Sullivan and Ian Corbett and Dara Tracy, and like they're still at the peak of their powers. And you've great leaders there on and off the field. There's no reason, and there's academy work has been done, and it's not going to be as quick as the hurling, because that's just out of this world what the hurlers have been able to do in such a short period of time. But it's great to see there's crowds are building ever so slightly, and it's good for the players that the work they're doing is being acknowledged, and they're getting the crowds there. And that next spring, or I suppose as you mentioned, the McGrath Cup, but when we have the first round of the league, it could be Dublin, it could be Kerry, it could be Clare, it could be Derry. Very possible that the All-Ireland champions will be in that division. There's going to be a good crowd for Limerick, and they can build on this journey that it has probably started in 2017. When Billy first came onto the scene, and you're only seeing the fruits of it the last 3 years, but it's a really long journey, and they're getting there and getting there and getting there. So I just want to. It's 13th of June that we're recording, and the Limerick footballers season is finished. And it's not like the previous years where COVID kind of impacted it. Like, we haven't seen the full split season in effect yet, but I saw there was a Westmeath hurler put up that he was actually happy that the season was over and they had a chance to do things. From what we've seen so far, would you say the split season is working? Or would you be in favour of it?
Yeah, I'll answer that question more intelligently when I see the fallout of the county championships, because and I know the county championships, what we have seen, Jack, in the county champions for the last 2 years has been truncated county championships, which would sort of facilitate the split season more than the county championships, which are proposed for this year, which is reverting back to the old formula, which I think an awful lot of people are very, very happy about, Jack. Because I scratch my head and I look at that formula in other counties, how they run their football and hurling championships, and and this is not green mist, Jack. Please don't get me wrong on this one. I find it hard to see any system that's better than the system that we have. And full credit to those for putting it in place, and full credit to those for implementing it and seeing that it's carried off.
Yeah, it's all well and good us watching, and you'd love to have a player on board, and as you said, when the club championship is over, and see how they've gotten on. But to be fair, these players are humans at the end of the day, and they're not professionals. In a monetary sense, in a lifestyle sense they are, but in a monetary sense, unfortunately not. So I think it's nice that they get a break now, and they might have a week of downtime before they go back to their clubs. But there is a break in between in the club championship from kind of August kind of time. So I was just wondering to get your opinion there on the.
Yeah, but Jack, from the soundings that I've been taking in the last couple of weeks now, since I've been out and about, make no mistake about it, there is not universal acceptance of the split season. There are murmurings. There are murmurings, and you're getting it as well, I'm sure. There are murmurings of discontent out there.
Yeah, you're always going to get that. It is going to be weird that we're coming into peak months of summer, and hopefully the weather gets better. You can't rely on anything. That we're going to have no football games to go to, and it's very well possible in 3 weeks we'll have no intercounty action. Depending on results for the hurlers and the Camogie and Ladies Football, which is strange, but that's when you encourage people to go back to their clubs. GAA is firmly, your club is where you start and it's where you finish, regardless what happens in the meantime. So if people are crying out for GAA action, there is more action, if anything, on a national scale with the club season. But I do see the point. Before, Limerick probably wouldn't have played a championship game at this stage. It's very possible that they'd only be kind of in their own Munster territory now. So it is. Look, it's going to take time to adjust that.
You see, the thing about it is, and the intercounty scene is coming in and coming to a conclusion and a climax at what is traditionally the best weather of the year,
Yeah.
While the club championship is only starting then, and it's coming to its climax, in October and November, which is sometimes very, very inclement, and there's that to it as well, and before I would offer a definitive opinion in it, Jack, as to whether it's working or not, and getting back to the nub of your original question, I would like to see it run in a year in which we would have a full, a Limerick championship with the tried and trusted formula, which we had to abandon for the last 2 years because of COVID. And I would like to see that to happen. And it's only then that we can make a judgment.
Yeah, and we'll reserve further judgment until then. A very good answer there from you, Matt. I suppose while the men's season was coming to an end, it was the start of the season for the ladies footballers on Sunday in Bruff, and it was a disappointing one, Matt. There was, and you're shaking your head there, and I was talking to you this morning. You were in Bruff, and it's a very positive league campaign. It didn't finish how they wanted to, with the defeat to Offaly, and you were kind of saying we'll kick-start the league, but that wasn't to be the case in Bruff yesterday. And like, you couldn't have got a better start now, and you'll talk about it more, but it was 12 points to 1-7 in the end. Antrim, to their credit, deserved the win, but it puts Limerick on the back foot straight away, and we'll get into the context of New York coming and everything like that. But again, it was a disappointing day overall for both football teams.
Just as you're about to arrive in America, Jack, New York are getting out.
Yeah, I know.
Is there any tie-up? No, Jack, seriously, I was fierce disappointed yesterday evening with the result, and I was fierce disappointed altogether for Graham Shine and the girls. Looking back in the game, I find it very hard to put my finger on what went wrong. And now Graham Shine did put me in the picture afterwards as to where he thought it went wrong. And on reflection, I think he's absolutely correct. Limerick were without a game of any type of meaningful game since the 3rd of April. Now, in the meantime, Antrim played a 2-legged Ulster Junior final against Fermanagh and won twice in the lead into the championship. So that was ideal preparation. But notwithstanding that, Limerick got off to a great start. Now, there was a very funny breeze blowing in Bruff yesterday. You would have to say that it favoured the team going down there, playing down towards the scoreboard end. But it was more blowing towards the scoreboard diagonally than it was. And like Limerick got off to a great start, and with the penalty, Katrina Davis offloaded to Amy Ryan. Amy Ryan was pulled down, and Katrina Davis clinically finished the penalty. At that stage, we were 1-3 to 1 point up. And we we didn't build on it score-wise. Yeah. And Mairead Kavanagh was missing. And, Mairead Kavanagh is the ultimate predator around goal. And she was a huge loss, in my view. But Antrim sort of got a grip on it then, even though they were playing, notionally against the breeze, and they got 4 points on the trot, and to pull it back to a point, coming up to halftime, and it didn't look great at that stage. Now, Katrina Davis got a free just before halftime to give Limerick a 2-point cushion. Immediately after the break, Cathy Carey, who was the Antrim captain, she got a point. But after that, there was a scoring lull after that, Jack, of about 18 minutes, I think.
I think
during which time Limerick got just 2 points, both of them from Cathy Mee, who I thought was outstanding yesterday, and that has nothing got to do with the fact that she's from the same club and the same parish as myself. But like, if you go out and I know you're laughing at it now, Jack, but if you go out if you go out any day and playing in an All-Ireland Championship match and you kick 4 points from play, you know, you're a very, very valuable player. And what I really think, Jack, the defining moment was an Antrim sub came on and was practically immediately ordered back to the bench for 10 minutes sabbatical on the foot of a yellow card. And Limerick at this stage were 3 points up. There was 10 minutes to go. They looked to be comfortable enough that the defence looked to be on top. But lo and behold, instead of it being to Limerick's advantage that Antrim were numerically challenged, what it actually did was it galvanised Antrim. It galvanised them. Now, and they had a small bit of luck as well, but they kicked 4 points in a row when they were down to 14 players. And a sub came on, Lara DeFonsi came on, and she was literally seconds on the field when she got a ball over on the far side in rough and kicked the most magnificent point.
Yeah, it was a brilliant score, in fairness.
That seemed to rally, and it seemed to get the bit between their teeth. And they were leading then by 1 point with less than 5 minutes to go. Cathy Carey made it 2 points. Cathy Mee fought back for Limerick and got a good point. And Cathy, you know, on other days, had luck been with her, and had luck been with Limerick, 1 or 2 of Cathy's points might well have ended up as goals, Jack, which would be typical Cathy, you know. But they didn't, and she brought it back to a point. But Orla Printer then got a late point. You know, she hadn't made much of an impact in the game against Alva Quaid. But she got a late point. It was her second of the second half, and it fizzled out from there. And it was good to see Alva Quaid back at full back. She hasn't been around for 5 years. Anya McGrath, who was a member of the 2018 All-Ireland final, she was named to start, didn't start, but came on and made a contribution. And there were no debuts from the start, no championship debuts. But Graham gave debuts to Anna Diavula and my own clubmate. I'm Stoke Rose Highland from Ballylandel, you know, I just don't know what went wrong in the last 10 minutes. 3 points up, Antrim down to 14 players, seemed to have a certain level of control, and everything went AWOL. So, very, very disappointing. Puts Limerick under a lot of pressure, Jack. As we explained last week, it's a 3-team group with Antrim, New York, and Limerick. And now what's coming up is that Antrim are playing New York next Saturday. They're at home to New York. And were Antrim to beat New York, it'll be a winner-take-all when New York come to Limerick, which is on next Wednesday week. I know we're recording on a Monday. We won't probably be going out until much later in the week, but it's on Wednesday, this Wednesday week. 22nd. So 22nd, and the venue to be decided, possibly the Gaelic grounds, I'm told, but that it's not written in stone. There's nothing like that. But the permutations are such. If you had a situation where New York were to beat Limerick or beat Antrim, then you had a huge challenge, because you would be forced with having to beat New York.
Yeah.
Which may be the only redeeming feature in that is that you're only minus 2 points. You're minus 2 champions points, and scoring difference, you're minus 2.
Yeah, it just gets tricky that you're kind of, winning is hard enough, not to mind winning by a certain margin when players have points totals in their heads and think it'll only be 2 or 3 anyway with the manner of that fixture. But Limerick now are kind of waiting for next Saturday's game as well, or next Sunday's game as well, which is, it's never easy for a team to wait. And if Limerick had beaten Armagh or Antrim, would have been as simple as we beat New York and we're through or we draw, But look, I don't doubt that Graham Shine's side will bounce back. You talk about, kind of what went wrong, like Cork met Hay and Pairc Ui Chaoimh with the extra men. But we've seen so often, Matt, that some teams are so prepared that when something like a black card happens, or they're down a player with a red or whatever, that they just can't adjust because they were so ready for playing 15 on 15. So I'm sure Graham Shine will get the side back in. And
you had possibly converse reactions or opposite reactions with Limerick's black card in Cork with Gordon Brown. And Antrim's black card, it absolutely galvanised Antrim, definitely, no question about it. Now, Graham Shine is quite happy that the game on yesterday will bring on his team an awful lot. Like he was going around scrambling, looking for challenge games and couldn't get them, and had eventually to play one or two club teams. So, not the ideal preparation when Antrim were in the cauldron of playing championship games. So they came with a big advantage, Jack.
Yeah, and for, I know you mentioned Alba Quaid, it was 6 years for her, but there's a lot of those players that haven't played championship in a couple of years, 3 or 4, the likes of Cathy Mee hit the ground running. And Cathy Mee was very Adrian Ennis' performance for the men's team, 4 from play, a wing forward, and they weren't gimmies by any means. I mean, they were brilliant scores, and the highlights are on our website there if you want to have a look. I know it'll be 3 or 4 days removed. But on the black card thing, or I suppose on players coming back, as you said, that'll bring on leaps and bounds that you can't compare. First of all, championship intensity, but when you're playing club teams, it's probably not the same, and you're not up for it the same way as you would be, no matter how good the club team is. But just on the black card, for myself, I was always a forward till I went into the goals, and defenders have a natural instinct to defend where forwards don't as such. And when you have an extra man, you kind of, or as a forward, you'd be more inclined to say, okay, we have an extra player back there, I have to do less work, and that kind of sends ripples. Not less work, but I might necessarily have to pick up someone, and then when 2 are doing that, they actually have an extra person. So, it can work against other teams. Unfortunately, that's what happened. But as we said, they'll learn from it. They'll have New York. They'll have to beat New York regardless. I think that's the big message is
that's the big message. They have to beat New York. They have to beat them.
Wednesday week, as we said, June 22nd. Looking like the Gaelic Crowns, we don't know. It remains to be seen. There'll be an evening game, so it'll have to be in the lights. Well, you'd imagine you need lights. I know. I suppose it's 8:30 now. It's still fairly bright, but a bad day, and it'll be dark at 8ish or so, getting dark. So the best of luck to Graham Shine and his side, and it'll be interesting to see their response. We saw it for the men's team, so hopefully the women's team can do the same. I suppose in more positive news, on Saturday, the Camogie team picked up a win, and as John Lillis said, it was a long time coming, and it has been a long time for the side, and they fought hard, in the league and in the championship last year, and the dominoes just didn't fall for Lane. That they kind of needed a bit of luck, and they didn't really get luck in Cappamore. But when the chips were down and they were level so many times, it was Cueva Costa that popped up with 2 scores, and they held out at the other end. And I suppose keeping a clean sheet would have been main or a huge thing for John Lillis' side, because in the game, 11 points to 9, there's no room for conceding a goal. And when chances came, Limerick took them, and that could be the springboard that we've been kind of looking for this team that have, they fought very hard this year. And the Clare game to get a Crowns was one that really got away. We saw what Clare did. Now it's Limerick's turn that they can build on this victory. Momentous, really.
Yeah. And first of all, Jack, may I say that it was a very, very pleasurable experience, and I hadn't been at the ground for a long time to visit the Cappamore ground. They have excellent facilities out there, and their organisation of the event and the hands-on approach in organising, everything was organised to a T out there, and full credit to them, and it has to be said about them, and they had everything absolutely excellent, and it just goes to show that clubs like Cappamore are quite capable and have the facilities to stage important inter-county games. And And another thing that struck me about the place was that there was a decent crowd there who were able to create a decent atmosphere. And I think when Limerick came into the home straight and it was close, by God, Jack, did they make themselves heard. They just really, really got behind the team. But as for the game, like a small bit of tongue-in-cheek, I suppose, with John Lillis, when we went to speak to him after, he said it was unusual for him to be giving interviews after winning, that he was used to giving them after losing, but no question, Jack, whatsoever. None whatsoever. The better team won. And that's not being green misty-eyed now or anything like that. It would have been a travesty and an injustice had Limerick lost. Now, Limerick played against a very strong wind that blew straight down, if you know the Camogie pitch. That blew straight down the field in the first half, and it blew in. It was blowing into the clubhouse end, and Offaly were first to score, but Quivalines immediately replied with a point. But I think it was ominous for Offaly very, very early on, because by the 10th minute, Jack, I noted it, whilst Limerick had only 1 point on the board, they had shot 3 wides and hit the post twice. So that will give you a sense of a certain amount of dominance that Limerick exacted from the start against the Breeze. But Jack, every player in a green jersey, they fought, they battled, they fought for every single thing. Every single thing. There was no space. You must remember Mairead Tehan. She was the architect of sending Limerick into Division 2 in the relegation final in Moneygall, when she got 3 goals. She had to be satisfied with a point from a free on Saturday. She was so well policed. Every girl from 1 to 15 and those that came off the bench, Jack, they gave it everything. They gave it everything, irrespective of the result. And you would be proud now to be a Limerick person and to see the superb effort. Now, you must remember, Jack, that confidence couldn't have been high in the camp. They hadn't won a game in the league or the championship this year. They had shifted a very heavy beating in Kilkenny. This was the team, Offaly, that had relegated them from Division 1 Camogie for next year. So, the omens weren't great, going into the game. And it needed that type of response. And I'd be pretty confident, Jack, that Limerick are going to drive on from here.
Yeah, I want to talk about that there, because, Kilkenny and Galway are through now. Antrim are a point ahead and Limerick have them in the last round. But there should be a kind of a buzz in the camp now that they have that doubleheader with Down, the juniors are playing. That's on the weekend of the 26th of June. But Limerick now, they have destiny in their own hands. Obviously Antrim are ahead of them, but they will play them. And it's like
they have, and that one supreme bit of effort. It has turned the season around, and it has turned the dynamic around, Jack. But just an interesting thing now, and I know you're going to tell me stop, because you usually do when I go down this road.
Rabbit hole.
Offaly had their first 2 games at home, and that 3 remaining games are away to Limerick, Kilkenny, and Down. So
I suppose that's an issue. You just have to keep flagging. That's not fair either. You could be accused of.
If they blame the computer, they should get a new one, because that particular one is malfunctioning. If that's what it comes up with.
You're after expanding in the green mist to green, white, and gold mist there for Offaly, but no, look, it's wrong in fairness.
No, I'm being consistent, Jack, and making the point.
Yeah, no, that's completely fair, and it's completely unfair then for the team, because it's all well and good starting great at home, but then if you lose 3 in the bounce and you're still through, you're at hiding to nothing then in the knockout stages, and it's just wrong, and you wouldn't see it in the men's game, I don't think.
But you go into the minutiae of the permutations, Jack. were awfully to lose to Kilkenny. If Limerick lost to both Down and Antrim, Limerick would still be safe by virtue of the head-to-head.
Yeah.
Because it could mean that Offaly are on a maximum of 3 points. But I don't expect that it's going to come down to that at all. I'd be pretty confident. I'd be pretty confident now, and I'd be fierce disappointed if they don't beat Down. That's no disrespect to Down.
I think for Limerick, it's a case of looking up rather than down, and see, can we get ahead of Antrim, and again, we're referring back to the footballers, but it was the same that night in Portlaoise when they beat Laois, that before the game there was a chance to be pulled into the mire, into the relegation pit, but they got the win and went on to get promotion. So, this could be the launch pad that they've been looking for. And as you said, Down, like Limerick would have fancied their chances against Down regardless. But if you come in off the back of 3 successive defeats, confidence will be down. Whereas now they've got over that they got the monkey off the back that was just getting a championship win. It was hard fought as well. Sometimes if you hammer a team, you kind of get, I suppose, a false sense of where you are. But that wasn't the case. Offaly gave as good as they got, and Limerick were the ones left standing at the end of the game. And momentum is definitely with them heading into Down. But
and Jack, I have. I was particularly looking at the younger players, and I was particularly, the new players, and see how they were performing. I thought Teresa Dore, who plays for Camogie Ui Chaoimh, she's from Bannog, played exceptionally well. I thought Stephanie Wolfe, Ailby Larkin, Sarah O'Brien, they played very well. And very, very heartening towards the finish, Jack. Michelle Curtin was introduced. Now, she had her tonsils out a couple of weeks ago and wasn't, has been off the scene for a couple of weeks. And she showed in her cameo appearance when she came on what an asset she will be. And she got back and made a very, very important hook at a stage when Offaly could have got a goal. And as you rightly pointed out at the start, that a goal would have been crucial in the game. But it would have been rough justice in Limerick. But Michelle just showed what she's going to bring to the table now, hopefully in the coming games. But the let's say the experienced brigade, they led the way, no question about it, no question whatsoever. You had Myrne Kramer, who of course knows every patch of the Cappamore pitch. She was excellent at full back, and you had I thought Mairead Ryan got an excellent point. If you saw the highlights, Jack, you probably see it, an absolutely excellent point. Sophie O'Callaghan. I was hugely impressed with Sophie O'Callaghan in the Limerick Championship last year when she was playing at centre back.
Yeah.
And she brought a good element of that now to the county. And I thought Niamh Ryan was outstanding at midfield, and then you had Rebecca DeLee, Caoimh Costello, Caoimh Lyons, and Lorraine McCarthy. Lorraine McCarthy made one crucial interception, Jack, in which she won possession. If you recall, one possession, held it up, and the timing of her offload was absolutely perfect to Caoimh Costello to put it over the bar. Without exception, and Claire Keating in goals, fair play to Claire Keating back after a couple of years of an absence, and possesses a very, very, very long puck out and an accurate puck out. There's a lot, and I didn't mention Marion Quaid, who was rock solid at cornerback, the captain. Jack, there was a lot of positives. People will probably be saying to me now, "Oh, you think Limerick will win the All Ireland?" I don't. But I think that Limerick are in, circumstances, let's say, conspired against them in the league and the championship. And I believe now that they've got their season up and running, and the confidence will be high. And it won't be lost on them, Jack, that here is an opportunity to make it through to the last 6 and a quarter-final place. And that would be a measure of progress. And it will be a measure of progress when you can compare it with where Limerick were a week ago even.
Yeah.
It will just give you an indication of the value and what one win can do. And let's hope that they'll derive the confidence that we expect they will from that victory over Down, and over Offaly, and a second victory over Down will put them very, very much in a strong position going to Antrim. Now, going to Antrim is going to be tough. Kilkenny found that out last week. They had to pull out our last weekend, last Saturday, they had to pull out all the stops to beat them up there.
Yeah, but
there'll be a tough nut to crack up there.
For John Lillison's side, it's down. It's down at the moment, and you won't be.
It's down at the moment.
You can forget about Antrim till you beat Down, and then you can be looking at, I suppose, it'll probably be a winner takes all clash. That Antrim one, if they can beat Down. But the best of luck to John Lillis and his side. Hopefully you can build on it. And that.
Jack, when you return from Yankee Land, we will hope that we'll have taken a giant step towards the knockout of the Camogie Championship.
Yeah, I'll be home that weekend that they're playing Antrim. So please God, we're looking forward to a winner takes all clash. Before we go, Matt, we've 51 minutes to talk. I know you don't like when I spring things on you, but I suppose coming back to the football, because it was the big story of the weekend that we finished. It was a brilliant year for Limerick. If you had to pick out maybe one or two players that impressed you the most throughout the year from 2022, and I know you'd rather have more time to look at it, and at the end of the year we will look back, but who kind of comes to mind from that football team?
Well, Cian Sheehan comes to mind immediately. Thought he had a very, very good year. Cian Corbett. Brian Fanning made a huge difference when he came back, Jack. Make no mistake about it. You mentioned James Norton there. James Norton had a very, very, very good year. And I was hugely impressed also, and this mightn't be directly answering your question. I was hugely impressed with the cameo appearances of Robbie Burke.
Yeah,
he made some very, very telling appearances from the bench. And I thought Killian Fahey had a very, very good year.
Yeah, if I was answers, sorry to cut across here, I'd go with Killian Fahey. I thought he was brilliant in midfield because I didn't really know how it would work. I thought he was a real key cog at centre forward, but he's a brilliant long range shooter. He's excellent hands, as we know. He's works very hard. And I thought in the league final, you really missed him when he went off early, and I suppose that's always a sign of a good player that when they're missing their gun. But you look, as you were starting to, you could make a case for any of the players. They were all brilliant. And it's a lot of the same lads that were there in 2017, languishing in Division 4, and it's that bit of confidence that Billy gave them, and that you start to win games. So hopefully they can
bit of coaching as well, Jack. And I suppose it would be wrong when we're concluding the season. Billy has a very, very strong backroom team, and give particular reference to Adrian O'Brien on strength and conditioning. I think Adrian has done an absolutely fantastic job, and I think that's universally accepted, Jack.
Yeah, it is. And look, it takes a fair athlete to fill out those jerseys, or the sponsor. They could hide a small bit if it's there, and you see it with both hurlers and footballers. They're filling out those jerseys in all the right areas for an inter-county athlete. So the work Adrian O'Brien is doing, definitely, and obviously there's been Billy's had a share of coaches now, and Morris Horan came back this year, and we've had Shane Kelly in that role, and Brian Beckley and Shamey's in there as well. So fair play to Billy and his team. And look, we will dissect the season in the whole as we get towards the end of the year. I just wanted to ask that quick question there. We nearly have an hour on the clock, Matt. I might just ask before we go. We're down to 6 in the All-Ireland Championship. Limerick are still 2 weeks away. What will be the semi-final pairing in forwards, and what will be the final pairing then, now that we know the last 6?
Limerick and Wexford, Kilkenny and Cork. Kilkenny and Limerick. And Kilkenny and Limerick.
And then I know I didn't ask you, but the winner?
Who do you think?
It's interesting they're going there with the third place teams. The route Limerick took in 2018 to, I suppose, upset the odds, but you're going for the Leinster and Munster champions. For what it's worth, I think Clare will beat Wexford. I think Cork will beat Galway. Both agreement there. I think Limerick will beat Cork, and I think Kilkenny will beat Limerick. So Kilkenny will beat Clare. So we both have the same final pairing. Knowing us, it'll probably be, I suppose, Cork against Clare.
I might be totally wrong, Jack. I might be totally wrong, but I think you must. And this is not. I'm not basing my judgment on this. Over the weekend, we saw the defeat of the 4 defeated football finalists: Roscommon, Limerick, Donegal, and Kildare. Now, you're not comparing like for like. Well, you are to a certain degree, But I have a feeling that Clare will take there will be a dent in their confidence after the Munster final, and they're going to be without Rory Hayes and going to be without Peter Duggan.
Yeah, huge losses, and we won't get into that.
Huge losses, plus the fact that we know that there's a big game in Wexford, but we also know, Jack, and don't forget it, that there's a big game in Galway.
Yeah, I know you went for Cork there.
I'm going for Cork, but because it's probably safer to do so because we don't know what Galway will turn up, I was awfully disappointed. I was very disappointed with the whole Galway performance in the Leinster final, and of course we spoke last week about the off the field of the sideshow charade that was going on, but no more about that. But there were some players in Galway that on the day in the Leinster final didn't step up to the mark, and you would have to ask the question. Like Galway wasn't terrible far off Kilkenny, nevertheless, But you'd have to ask the question, Jack, if these players were to hit the ground running against Cork, Cork could be in a bit of trouble.
Oh, definitely. On their day, Galway are definitely a match for any team, Limerick included. I just think Cork will build momentum coming through. That entrance test would have been a good test to get, for what it's worth. I think if Clare were drawn with Galway or Cork, I'd be going for Galway or Cork, considering what Limerick had to do or Clare had to do against Limerick, and that will have taken a lot out of them. But look, it'll be remains to be seen. When I'm home, we record next, it'll probably be the All-Ireland final we're looking to. But I might touch base when we're in America. It's going to be 8 hours, I think, is the difference. But I'll be watching those quarterfinals with interest. Have you
designs in getting me up at 4 o'clock in the morning, Jack?
No, sure. I'm 8 hours. I'll be up all hours. That's I could still be working off the Ireland schedule if the nightclubs are good enough over there. I'll watch the quarterfinals anyway with great interest this weekend. I don't really mind who comes through. We'll know on Saturday evening who Limerick have on July 3rd. I'll be home for that game. We might record before the game. It's on the Crow Park. But for now, I think we'll call it a day. We're up to the hour mark.
I just want to mention something about the bizarre series of results in the minor football championship.
Go on.
We had Cork went down to Kerry and got beaten by 14 points and failed to score from play in the semi-final. And Cork then got back through the back door and beat Tipperary, who had won phase 1, and then went on to beat Kerry by 11 points in the Munster final, a turnaround of 25 points in 19 days. Right?
Yeah.
In the Ulster final, Tyrone beat Derry. And lo and behold, last Saturday, Derry beat Cork very comfortably, and Kerry beat Tyrone.
Yeah, I know. Look, I think
Jack, thank be to God you're not asking me to call those games.
No, I think just at under 17, you're still very young. There's probably 15-year-olds playing that men, you're not mature at that age. If you're losing in a game, you could throw in the towel, or if you're beaten, you probably have no fear playing anyone, So, and they're probably well able to recover from those type of defeats. They'd have, school and relationships and all those things to be distracting them. Other sports, they're probably playing a load of sports, so they're probably going from game to game and just taking it as it comes. So yeah, but it is very interesting, and as you said, you wouldn't want to be back in those games or relying on those results to go in for you. But look, it's an hour there as we're talking. I think we'll leave it there. A huge thank you to you, Matt. It'll be a 2-week delay, but Treaty Talk will go ahead as it is. We'll be recording the football preview for the senior championship in the meantime, so that'll be coming to the week before. But for now, well done to the Camogie team. Commiserations to both football teams. The ladies will be back in action on June 22nd, as we said, for Billy Lee and his team. It's the end of a memorable season, shall we say. And for the Camogie team, the 26th of June will be a doubleheader for the senior and junior. So a lot to look forward to. But for now, thank you and goodbye.
Cheers, Jack.
Fresh in the game, you get out with what you put into it. It's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
Not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Johnny Buckley. To do that to Tomas O'Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word go today. No more about it. They made all the run, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left?